Welcome to What's Doing. My father, Jimmy Breslin, always said, I can't keep writing newspaper columns every day about blood and guts. You got to have some fun. So today, we're here with the same place my father started, sports. We're here with a young man, Jimmy Rosselli, High Point University in North Carolina. Jimmy made history last year when his team came back in electrifying fashion with three-pointers, and Jimmy was on the mic. Hey, Jimmy, welcome.
Thank you guys. Really appreciate you having me on, and I appreciate the introduction. You're making me sound a lot better than I am, but I appreciate it.
Jimmy, what got you going so young to wanting to get into the sports business and reporting?
Ever since I was a kid, I was always big into entertainment, and I always loved sports. And when I used to play knee hockey with my buddies, yeah, knee hockey where you get on your knees and you're shooting this little foam ball. I used to always broadcast us, who has the ball. We used to do interviews. I used to interview these guys and go play by play. Like Sam Rosen was a big inspiration for me. I was a big Ranger fan growing up, and I was always into this stuff. And my parents tried to push me into it, and I told them I don't want to be the guy talking about other people. I want to be the guy that people talk about me. And that kind of led me into trying to pursue sports. But obviously, I'm 5'9". I was like 65 pounds when I graduated high school. I had no shot at going professional. So I got into stand up comedy. And that's where I kind of learned that I had a real love for entertainment and kind of just making people's days, whether it's with your voice or a sense of humor. And that ended up going into sports broadcasting. I did stand up comedy for Gary Valentine. Him and Kevin James are brothers, so he's been on a lot of big movies. He was a big help for me, a big mentor, taught me a lot about the comedy business, and then also helped me kind of get into the sports broadcasting business because originally I wanted to go out to LA and not go to college and just shoot my shot in comedy. And obviously, my mom and my dad were like, that is not happening. So they threw me right into High Point, where my sister was. She was playing D1 lacrosse. And I got right into sports broadcasting. They loved my voice. And I kind of just worked from there.
How do you work with it? My father always said you have to know verbs, 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 verbs. He said it's the
Yeah.
most vital thing. How do you prepare?
Every week, sometimes like nowadays for me, since that video, I'm definitely a lot more busy. But freshman and sophomore year, it was more like, one game a week. Nowadays, it's usually like 3 games a week. So I try to stay ahead. My biggest thing is making call sheets, diving deep into the rosters, the depth charts. Where did the coaches start? Where did this player come from? What were his stats over there? What's the history between these two teams? I try to prepare with that stuff. But now, since I've gotten used to it, I kind of go off what you just said, which is changing my vocab a lot, right? Like not repeating terrific or beautiful or pretty. I'm trying to find new words to kind of throw in there, like fantastic or fabulous, and just kind of keeping it fresh because the more you use repetitive words, the more you kind of sound less professional. And I try to get out of this student role. I'm only a junior at High Point, but I really want to try and go pro with it. So I'm trying to get better at the little things.
My father said you have to read. You have to read. Are
Yeah.
you reading a lot? For any young writer, any young broadcaster, anybody, he used to say verbs is the game and you have to read.
Mike Breen, the voice of the NBA Finals for the past 25 years.
Yeah.
I had a phone call with him back early in my sophomore year. I think it was October of my sophomore year, so about a little over a year ago. The best advice he gave me was start reading and start taking words that maybe you don't understand, look them up in the dictionary and throw them into your broadcasting because it makes you sound a lot more intelligent, but it also gives you more credibility. You don't want to use a word that nobody understands, but you want to use a word that people are going to be like, okay, I can infer what that means, but it makes you sound a lot smarter than you are.
My father always said there, short sentences win. You
Yes.
work hard on your copy.
I do. I mean that Purple Rain call back with the viral video, that was the championship call that also had gone viral. That was me in the car, just brainstorm. We had Purple Rain on. I'm a big rock guy, old soul with that stuff. My dad always, I grew up on AC/DC, Guns N' Roses, all those guys. And we had Purple Rain playing, and I started thinking to myself, I said, Purple Rain, High Point's purple and white. That's pretty good. And then I also thought, hey, that's going to hit with the older audience as well because they know what Purple Rain is. So it kind of just formed this whole little 20-second spiel when they won, and that was my championship call. That was my championship copy right there. That ended up getting a good amount of views and had some attention from CBS and all those guys, which is all I can ask for.
Let me ask you, you're so young starting out in the game. Did it put pressure on you? My father said the worst thing he ever did was start so young, but he started young and he never stopped. You remind me of him. You're starting out young.
Well, thank you for the compliment, first of all. But I do. I agree. I think the pressure definitely mounts. I've talked to some professors about it here at my school, especially the ones I'm close with, about how going viral is great, but now you have this pressure on you where I can't even legally have a beer right now. You know what I mean? Like I'm 20 years old and I'm going through viewership and random DMs from people who I don't know whether they're ripping me apart or giving love. And usually it is love, so I appreciate the support from a lot of people around the world. But it's hard to take into consideration before every game that you're already at a spot where people are listening that you've never even met in your life. And that's like something you see more so on national television or when you're covering college football or the Super Bowl and stuff like that. Yeah, now they're going to know you. But when you're a student at High Point, theoretically, you're not usually getting the attention like this. So it's definitely a mental battle, but I've found to love it. One of my favorite quotes is pressure is a privilege. Definitely, that changed me a lot. It was a college football coach who said it. Pressure is a privilege, and we have the privilege to play under the pressure today. And I loved that quote. And every broadcast, I kind of think of that one.
Yeah, I watch you. Very smooth, very relaxed. Let me ask you: do you read a lot of newspapers? Do you read sports things? What do you do? How do you prepare yourself? Nobody
I
reads newspapers anymore. I don't care if it's online, but do you think it's invaluable reading papers?
I definitely don't think it's invaluable. I think it's a good thing to do. I wish I did more of it. I won't lie. I don't do it as much as I did when I started off freshman year, probably just because I'm a lot more busy now. And I usually take that time to watch film on a team, right? See how they run their offense or how their defense is running, just so I can break that down when I'm live on air. But I do think reading those articles is a big help because I did it last one I read was the college basketball top 25 that ESPN had released, and it kind of broke down every team. I'm a big college basketball fan. I wanted to know, all right, so what does UNC look like? They were 25th in the early rankings, and they were talking about Caleb Wilson and all these guys who are on the rise now. And I personally found reading that entertaining, one, because I love college basketball, but two, because now I know more that if I get a freelance gig for a big name college, right, and I'm finally making some money, I can talk about more than just that team, right? I could talk about the ACC or SEC conference as a whole instead of just that team I'm broadcasting.
Funny you brought that up. My father started in sports, and
Yeah.
sports made his life. Got him a Pulitzer Prize, got him every award you could ever get in journalism. He
Yeah.
said he started in sports, and his credo was, "You go to the loser's locker room."
I love that. And I did sideline reporting last night, and my producer was telling me, all right, get the winning coach, get the winning player. It was a championship game, Big South Championship. They put me on sideline, only student working that day for that stuff, which was an honor, and I took it very serious. But I told my producer, I said, I think it'd be pretty cool to hear from the losing coach as well, see what he thinks about reflecting on this. Or, when you're up 1-0, yeah, it's easy to answer some big questions, but when you're down 1-0, now you got to really think about the question, and people want to hear what's going through your head right now because you're at the helm of the program and you're the one that needs to make a new decision or make the adjustments. What are you going to do? I personally like hearing more about that than I do just hearing about the celebration.
My father wrote a newspaper article called "It's an Honor," which was the death of John F. Kennedy. He went
Mhm.
to the grave digger. Everybody in Washington, D.C. was at the funeral, packed, where winners would be ostensibly, even though it was a funeral. And he said, "I'm dead in the water here. What would I do to get a great story?" And he found the grave digger. Basically, he went to the loser's locker room. And because of that, they came up with theory in journalism schools. And from sports.
Sadness is a part of sports, right? I mean, just look at the Dodgers and Blue Jays in the World Series, right? I mean, the Blue Jays, they probably had some incredible interviews. I mean, there was a lot of sadness in that locker room. There's two sides to every story. They say that in everything, whether it's a courthouse or in sports. And in sports, it's very important to report on both sides and write about them because there's a lot of Blue Jay fans out there who want to hear what's going through some of their star players' heads and not just hear about Kiki Hernandez's hilarious interview that he had in the locker room. I mean, as great as it was, it's great content. You also want to get that other side of it.
You're a young guy, and already you started mentioning there's pressure on you that you're doing more. At such a young age. And my father did say one thing: journalism should be truthful and entertaining. Have a little humor, because life
Mhm.
isn't deadly serious all the time.
Yeah.
How are you handling it?
I'm definitely my biggest critic. Anytime I do an interview, I immediately will look back at it and say, that was so bad. I should have done this better. I should have asked this question better. Or whether I'm on air and the goal call wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. That's where I kind of get hard on myself. But I also remember that I am 20, and I am going to develop with my voice. One, I mean, when I started as a freshman, I sounded like a pipsqueak on the mic. I had barely hit puberty, let alone have any experience. And now my voice is a little bit deeper, so I found my pitch a bit more, but I still try to use that sense of humor that I learned from stand-up comedy. And I think that was undoubtedly my best decision I've ever made. My dad will say the same thing. It's the best decision I've ever made to do stand-up comedy because I've been cheered on stage. I haven't quite been booed off stage, but I've definitely been criticized, right? And I've had some shows where it was like, I want to run off the stage, and it was a 5-minute bit, and I still wanted to just get off in 30 seconds because the first joke didn't land. But that taught me how to handle the adversity that comes with technology failure and the pressure of a lot of people watching. It's just like another day in the office.
You brought up a really good point, humor.
Yeah.
Try to bring humor into your storylines when you're working.
I do. I tried. There's a line, right? It's like not like stand-up comedy where people are paying to come see something that's out of pocket. Professional broadcasting is definitely there's a line that you cannot cross,
Hmm.
and I've been very good at finding that line nowadays. When I was a freshman, I definitely struggled with it. I won't say I said anything out of too bad, but I definitely went a little bit more than I probably should have, which is fine. I mean, I started in stand-up, and my
What
producers
do you
will
mean,
never be
throwing in a
mad.
joke right?
Yeah, I was bringing up everything. I was bringing up some Visco posts and stuff. Like, Visco's like a girls app nowadays. So, like, the camera angle showed a cool camera angle. And I was talking about how some girl needs to screenshot this and post it on her Visco. And, it's funny. People loved it. My producers loved it. But they were like, all right, Jimmy, cut it off now. I've talked about Chipotle bowls and me and my partner betting on whatever the review is, whether it's offsides or not. We've had some fun, and I think that's a good thing to have. But I also, again, it's very important to stay professional because you never know who's listening. And if CBS or ESPN or NBC is listening and they're trying to see how I sound for an entirety of a broadcast and they hear that, they might say, all right, this is cute because he's a college kid, but when he turns 22, all of a sudden this needs to stop because now it needs to be all about the game. And that's what I try to think about throughout the entirety of it. There's always moments where you can make jokes, but you don't want to go over the line or do it at the wrong time.
Because there's always a serious moment in sports. So
Yeah. You never know when a goal is going to happen or a big 3-pointer or a hole in one. You can be mid joke and somebody does something incredible. You got to be ready to stop it and get right back to the goal call because as a broadcaster, you're not the star of the show. The star is the game. People are watching the game because they know the players or they love the team. And your job is to inform them on things that they may not have known or just narrate the game, right? And find the sense of making silence your best friend because sometimes you don't need to talk the entire broadcast. People are there to watch, not hear you.
absolutely. You know what? Your instincts are very, very good. Because I was thinking, my father, when he would cover a column, very similar to what you were just saying, he'd watch the event. He'd call it his power of observation. You do it with your voice. He did it with his body. When he come up on a story, he used like economy of movement. He wouldn't move too much. It's basically you observing the game. Do you
Yeah.
bring similar traits to it?
I agree with that. For me, obviously, different area with being on air, but what goes along with what you just said is the silence of it, right? So silence is your best friend. Sometimes when I'll go with soccer because we're in soccer season, it's going back and forth at midfield. There's no reason to say this guy touches it, then this guy touches it, then this guy touches it, and that guy touches it. It's ping pong going back and forth. Just let it play out until one team gets control because the screen can see it. And with radio, it's different. I got to narrate it, but with TV, just let it play out and then make your comment.
Use your eyes and ears very carefully, don't you?
You have to, or you're going to find a lot of failure if you don't. It's a teamwork thing. So I got to be listening to my producer, my director. I got to be paying attention to the camera angles, the replay, and then also know who has the ball and who's on the guy's right and left, what the defense is trying to do, who's pressuring them. There's a lot around just narrating a game that I don't think regular sports fans understand, but they're starting to, especially with social media. A lot of broadcasters are now getting a lot more credit for what they've done and their talents that they bring. I mean, Jim Nance, Andrew Catalan's on the rise. He's another guy who I've had a phone call with, big mentor of mine. He's been getting a lot of love on social media just because he's been consistent with PGA and NFL, and he does it the right way. He's never overspeaks, always has a good storyline, always has a game-winning call ready for both sides, and just kind of keeps it unbiased and does a good job.
Oh man, I love what you're saying. My father actually enjoyed television a lot. He did a ton of TV, but he said I could never do it as a career. He said because well, you're a good-looking guy. He said as soon as you get a line in your face, you're in trouble. He said, all right, but listening to you, I enjoy it because you seem like you're having a lot of fun at it for a young age, and you're going to go big.
I'm having a ton of fun with it. It's definitely my passion. I will say though, with the wrinkle on the face, my mom will get on me for acne. She'll go right away. Any pimple she sees, she's like, "Let's clean that up. Get yourself off camera right now, or you're gonna get on radio." And she's not wrong. You gotta look good. You gotta have the hair styled and the glasses in the right spot, cleaned off, teeth brushed. Obviously, I need to get some teeth whiteners. I think those guys got some pearly whites. I got some natural whites. I need to get some strips on here. Get to the big leagues.
You make sure you're using those verbs though.
So I'll keep like a list of words that I've come up with or that I love, and I'll check them off every time I say it. And that just allows me to kind of break through on some new vocabulary.
Sharp adverbs for any writer. You're
Yeah.
taking your written word for yourself and using it on air with yourself, or if you're writing a newspaper column. Those two things are essential. If you don't have that, the sentences, you fall asleep reading. You bore the reader, you bore the viewer, and you're dead in the water.
speaking is just like writing, right? Like you're forming sentences and you have to do it a little bit differently, obviously, because you're talking, but it's the same thing. I mean, you want to phrase it in a way that has a good, fluent vibe to it. Nothing that's going to be like, oh, like when you're saying a cell phone number, you say number, 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 and then the four numbers at the end, right? It's kind of the same way with when you're saying a statement about a player. You don't want to just ramble it out too quick or too slow. You want to find your rhythm and make it sound like poetry to people, especially with a game-winning call like that Purple Rain call for the Big South Championship. That was all in my head. That was poetry. Like I wrote that like Dr. Seuss kind of thing. I had the Dr. Seuss vibe to it, the rhyming of the A B that they use in poetry and stuff like that.
My father used to say, dream big. What are you dreaming about?
National television. That's the goal. ESPN Plus is what I do right now, which is national technically, but it's not like on a channel, right? It's not ESPNU or ESPN2.
I have it on my phone.
Yeah, it's great. It's a good little area for student reporters to get reps and a lot of attention, but it's not national with the NCAA tournament, the big dance. Like my biggest dream is to call a national championship for the NCAA tournament, and then beyond that, I hopefully get involved in the NBA. I hopefully get involved with some ESPN like random coverage around the country because they always do some new stuff. It'd be kind of fun to do the Ocho, the little random games that they do. I don't even know if they air it anymore that much, but when they used to, I used to watch it all the time, the little log spinning and stuff like that. I would have a ton of fun with those little random games because that's where I could involve sense of humor, right? Nobody's watching there for stats. Everyone's watching there for the comedy of it. It's funny. Nobody knows about the log spinning game where they're going to fall in the water, but it's hilarious to broadcast and to watch.
Well, you're amazing because you're going to work so young. Don't put too much pressure on yourself here because I think we're going to hear a lot about you in the future. I think you're going to be a big success here. What's the thing that brings the most fun for you about this?
The art of it. Comedy was an art, right? You have your own little spiel, your own go-to bit that you love. Everyone has their own vibe, right? Adam Sandler, Kevin James, two completely different comedians. Dave Chappelle, way different comedian, right? A lot more dirty, but it's a great storyteller. This is the same thing. Like I've took my comedy artistry into broadcasting, and I've changed it around, obviously, throughout the past 2.5 years of my career. But I'm falling in love with my pitch, right? What I like to say, my go-to words, my go-to goal calls or big three-pointers, right? I'm finding my pattern and my rhythm that I like that suits my voice and kind of mixes other guys. Like I love Gus Johnson and the way he'll talk after the basket. But I also love Andrew Catalan's ability to use poetry in his calls and Jim Nantz to do the same. But I also love Mike Breen and his energy, but yet professionalism. So I'm trying to take all these guys and find my own art on what they do. And hopefully someday somebody will say, I love the way Jimmy Rosselli does this. I want to use what he does and try and put it into my own work. And that's like the overall goal.
When I first Googled you, Jimmy Rosselli, you come up with a famous singer from a long time ago, Jimmy Rosselli.
I'm named after him. My nana loved him. My nana absolutely loved him. That was her favorite singer, Jimmy Rosselli, and I look completely different from what he looks like, but he was always on in the house growing up. So I was proud to be named after him, and now I got to go live up to the Jimmy Rosselli name and go get famous and make some big bucks like he did. But he's great.
Yeah,
I love him.
I think you will. But you brought up one little notion I thought was very nice there when you talked about the poetry of Jim Nance.
Yeah.
And it is true. Even with the golf stuff, it's beautiful. So I
Mhm.
think the key would be you got to read and you bring your own little magic to it.
Yeah, I agree. Jim Nance is definitely one of the best at that specific spot, using poetry, making his words count, right? Especially in golf. Golf is hard, right? I was a competitive golfer. I know how slow it is. Jim Nance was always an inspiration for me because he always had that call ready. I mean, even with Rory McIlroy in the Masters last year, I was there. First of all, I work for the Masters. I have an internship with them. So I work every week of the Masters in the merchandise sales department. And I was out on the 18th green. I remember thinking to myself, as he missed the putt, he missed the original putt. I wasn't able to stay for the playoff. But when he missed it, I'm thinking to myself, saying, what is Jim Nance going to say? And then once he makes it on I think the second playoff hole, he goes, Rory McIlroy has his masterpiece. That is perfect. Masterpiece, Grand Slam, finally done. Took him 20 years to do it. Like that was perfect poetry summed into whatever it was, 5, 6 words. That's why he's professional. That's why he gets all these big games. And golf, obviously, a little bit different than a big game like the NCAA national championship. But it's finding that rhythm. He's done it. You've seen Jim Nance cover the national championship for a long time. He knows what he's doing. I find it beautiful to see the different art you can use and different poetry you can use depending on the game and the sport. and the moment.
You brought it right back to what I initially said to you. Short sentences win.
I'm competitive, so I know how competitive this business is, and I'm really trying to be one of the best. I'm definitely a long way from it, only being 20. Nobody's going to give a 20-year-old a shot yet, but I'm hoping out of college, hopefully ESPN or CBS or NBC gives me a shot for a game, and I'll work my way up. I mean, I'll start from the non-popular college football teams to the SEC, or for basketball, right? I'll start, I mean, high points in the Big South. I'd love to cover the Big South and then work my way up to the A10 and then ACC, SEC, Big 10, Big 12, anything like that. I'd love to cover them. I know it's a long, long journey, so I'm keeping my head up and staying calm throughout it all. The Long Island blood obviously is not easy to control at times. We run at that New York pace, especially add the Italian spice into it, and it's like, uh-oh, you're impatient. You want it to come quick, but I'm trying to listen to a lot of my friends who are from Virginia who like to calm me down and say it's gonna come, it's gonna come. But yeah, I'm ready to go already. Long Island blood, New York
Now
blood.
you just keep dreaming big, Jimmy. Just keep dreaming big because I think you're on your way. Where do you think all sports and everything's going in the future? Like
Uh,
media wise,
I think there's no way to kill sports is the bottom line. I think it's always going to be the biggest market of news, especially nowadays. You turn on the news, it's always something negative. If I got hired to do regular news, I would break off of whatever they were trying to tell me to do and say, hey, can we go do a funny bit for once in a while? Like let me go on the street of New York City and just have some fun and like make a 10-minute segment that would make people's days, because you turn on regular news nowadays and it's always something going wrong, right? Whether it's politics or whether it's some scary event that happened.
yep,
It's great to report on, but it's sad. You don't want to turn it on. So people turn on sports because they want to hear about their favorite team, or they want to hear Mike Greenberg talk about the Jets and all these crazy teams. I think sports is never going to die. I think media is only growing, especially with social media. AI might give a little bit of trouble for writers, but the bottom line is nobody can ever write like a real good journalist can, because
absolutely. You got
they
to
put the
prompt the
passion.
thing.
Yeah,
You
they
got to
put the
prompt it.
passion, the real thoughts. AI, they're just going to tell you what happened. They're not going to put their heart into it, which is what journalists do. Is they put their heart into it. They travel with the teams. They go to these events to make a living off of it, and I don't think that's ever going to get taken away.
My father wrote an interesting column. When I say he's not all blood and guts, he wrote sports. He wrote about a young guy who shaved a basketball game. He missed the jump shot. And it made me think of the baseball pitchers with Cleveland the other day, throwing the ball in the dirt, or all the sports gambling and all the arrests. You have any
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
I've written articles for my school on sports gambling and NIL stuff, and I will say gambling's never going to get taken away. There's nothing you can do about it. I mean, I work, as I said, for MLB Network. I can't touch baseball. I'm not a big gambler anyway because I want to go into the business. But for baseball, if I touch it, even at the social media level, where I'm like bottom of the social media team, I'm a 20-year-old kid working my way up, they would still be able to find me, and it's still very persistent from MLB Network to say, hey, don't touch baseball. And I've lived up to that. But I will say, these players who are consistently gambling, one, you kind of got to tip your cap and say, all right, that was kind of smart on their end. But it was also kind of dumb, because you think about it, you're already making millions, right? Usually, like the average baseball player is making close to $1 million, and the stars are making. I mean, Juan Soto's making 750 million. I mean, that guy does not need to gamble, right? And a lot of the guys who are getting caught nowadays never needed to gamble, but they're at their end of their career where they're saying, all right, I don't really have my stuff anymore. I'm not the star anymore. How can I try and get myself one last contract under the table? And that's what they're getting caught with nowadays. I think it's a bad decision. I think the bigger problem is going to be college sports. I work in college sports and I know the players personally, and nobody would really know if I went up to one of our players and said, hey, get 3 rebounds tonight. I would never say that, obviously, but I could see it happening at a higher SEC or ACC level school where the money you can actually put on those players. I mean, in the Big South Conference, I wouldn't even be able to bet on player props for High Point or anything like that. But you could theoretically bet on the game, and they wouldn't listen to me if I even said anything. Obviously, again, I would never do that. But ACC and SEC, they might listen, right? Player props, some guy, one of the behind the scenes guys, someone who nobody even thinks about. Maybe it's arena operations, goes up to his good buddy who's a player and says, hey, try and get lower than 4 rebounds. I don't care if you put up 30, but just don't get 4 rebounds tonight. And he puts $100 on it. Nobody's going to know that he did that through word of mouth. So that could cause some real problems in the future, because it's college sports. It gets a lot of attention, but it's not getting as much as the pros. The pros have FBI involved in this stuff, which is good. It should be like that. But college sports, it's a little bit more of a free game. And I'm interested to see how that kind of comes to the air within the next couple of years, because with NIL deals and the money getting involved now in college sports, that network is going to be either a real problem or a really good thing if they gain control over it.
Wow. You just gave what my father used to talk about, the real inside story. You know what, Jimmy? Keep doing the legwork that you're doing, writing these columns and stuff like this. It shows you got a very serious side to you also. That between your humor and your serious side, exactly what my father blended, and you'll be big. You'll be big, Jimmy.
Thank you. I appreciate
Pleasure,
it.
man. Pleasure. Let me ask you, these kids' NIL money, my son screams at me, Dad, he's making so much money. He's making so much money. Do you think it kills their juice to be able to practice, to train, to do everything, to really go to the next level, professional level? Do you think some of them, like I start thinking they're tapping out in college, they think they're the stars already? You can see
Yeah,
in college football, a couple of these quarterbacks, I think to myself, you're not making it in the NFL. Same thing with a baseball player. I mean, I think it can thwart you.
I mean, look at the Zion Williamson back a couple years ago, right? I'm a Knicks fan, so I saw it coming. I thought we were gonna get the first draft pick. It was the lottery pick, and I think we got the third or fourth that year. But we all knew Zion was going first, and there was question as to Zion should stay another year, right, with Duke. But at the time, NIL, I believe, wasn't even happening. If it was very low amounts of money, and people were in his ear saying, "Hey, go pro, make your money." Right? Or don't play the rest of the season because he kept hurting his ankle. And they said, just save yourself for the NBA. That is the complete wrong way to look at it, in my opinion, because you're competing for your school, right? You have to want to win for your school beyond just yourself. But with money involved now, players are starting to turn to, okay, well, what can I do for myself? And with the NIL stuff, I mean, you're already seeing it with transfers. The transfer portal has no limit. You could be a player who starts at Duke and transfers to UNC, then NC State, then High Point in his fourth year. And that's just, he went all around North Carolina in 4 years and made himself $20 million because the donors and because of the NIL deals that he's getting are paying him more than enough money for him to ever even have to go to the NBA. And you could literally retire on $20 million. I mean, you could retire on $2 million, but at that level, hire a good finance guy, tell him invest some money, and you're set for life. Then they have to make the decision, do they want to go to the NBA or not? And that's going to cause problems in the future because they used to play for their career,
Team.
right? And the team. And now they're playing just for the money. And I think that's kind of killing college basketball and college sports as a whole, which
you made me think. My father years ago was very close with a famous basketball iconic coach, iconic sideline color man, Al McGuire from Marquette University. Al was a basketball genius. Al was the coach, and he had a player named Jim Chones, who I believe went to the Cleveland Cavaliers. And Chones was offered a big money deal to leave college early. Al went to his house and told him, you're gone. Chones was worried about Marquette University and the national championship. Al McGuire told Chones, yeah, but I'm worried about food in your refrigerator. You'll be the richest member of your family ever. So what are these kids supposed to do coming from backgrounds that are very often, they're the underprivileged?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. I mean, you see it with last year's draft. I forget who it was, but there was a guy who said he lived off of a generator for 8 years, and now he's finally getting paid the good money, big bucks, and in the NBA, and he gets to change his mom's life, who raised him as a single mom. But that's definitely a big part of it is these guys who come from nothing, which usually make the best athletes, if we're being honest here, going off the stats. Some of the best athletes come from the worst part of the country or a really tough area because they are hungry and they want it more than others. And that is a big benefit to NIL deals and to making money. But I also think it's going to be a problem just because, greed's a real thing. I mean, we've seen greed change people, especially big, famous, whether it's celebrities or.
Yeah, but you got to get the money. You got to get the money. My father
do.
used to say, you got to get the money.
NIL is the right thing to do for players because they're the ones performing for the broadcasters. So if the broadcasters are getting paid, the players should be getting money. I just think there needs to be a limit to it, right? Like you can't transfer 4 times in 4 years. Maybe you could transfer once or twice and you get your deal and you're good, you're making your money. That's enough to live off of and change your family's life because especially right now where it's in the millions or 2 millions, even if you're just a decent player, that's enough for me. But if you're transferring every year because you're getting new deals and new money, you don't need the NBA anymore. I just think you need to find that limit ground, whether there's a salary cap for what they can make or whether there's just a limit on how many times you could switch teams and transfer. I think that would balance everything out. They deserve money. There just needs to be a certain way to go about it.
This has been great. I'll leave you with this quote. My father said for him, the worst thing he ever did as a young journalist, writer, he said, I did was start work too young. You miss your own fun. But I think you're contradicting him because as I'm listening to you, this has been great fun, and I really appreciate it. And keep punching, as he would say.
I really appreciate the time. Thank you for having me on. It was an absolute pleasure. I've
Thank
listened to
you.
a couple of episodes. They're really great, so I'm excited to see how this one comes out as well.
Thank you. Share it. We'll be back in touch one of these days. I'm sure we're going to hear you making some big calls in the booth, and it'll be thrilling to listen to you.
I hope so.
Verbs, man, verbs.
Yes,
Goodbye.
sir.
Well, everybody, thanks for listening to What's Doing.